Hi, Melissa. Welcome to the Parks Commission. This is our public's comments portion. So if you could just give your name and address for the record, please.
Melissa McGarry, 27 Dogwood Lane, Westport. But I'm the project director of TPOD, Trumbull's Prevention Partnership.
Okay, proceed.
I am here tonight, and I think I should have some of my colleagues here as well. But I'm here as the project director for TPOD, Trumbull's Prevention Partnership. TPOD is a grant-funded community coalition dedicated to the prevention of substance abuse, the promotion of social and emotional wellness, and the creation of a safe and healthy Trumbull. And I'm with you tonight because I wanted to approach you to see, or we did, because I'm expecting Mary Isaac as well from Sustainable Trumbull. But we wanted to approach the Parks and Recs Commission about expanding your tobacco policy, which now, as I understand it, forbids tobacco use within certain areas of parks and recreation areas. We would like to approach you to see about getting that expanded to prohibit tobacco products and electronic nicotine delivery devices at any point within any park property. You know, I'm going to approach it from a health and a prevention perspective. It's well documented that secondhand smoke is harmful in both indoor and outdoor settings. Exposure is the third leading cause of preventable death. We've learned a lot about vaping products over the past few years, and one of the things we learned is that vaping liquid contains dozens of chemicals, including carcinogens, volatile organic compounds, and heavy metals. The American Lung Association has reported that chemicals in e-cigarettes cause lung and heart disease, and the US Surgeon General has also warned about secondhand vape. The liquid nicotine in these products and the residues that are included in the disposable vapes and vape pods is toxic to humans and animals. We are seeing, you know, our own survey data from TPOD shows that vaping rates amongst kids and young adults has risen dramatically in recent years, as measured by all local, state, and national data. And we feel that children and adults using town recreational facilities should not be exposed to the harmful effects of secondhand smoke and vapor. And we also did some research, and it appears that since 2016, the National Parks and Recreation Association has encouraged the establishment and maintenance of tobacco-free policies. And they cite widespread public support and the need for policies that enhance the user experience and benefit the environment. So a lot of the reasons that we feel kids should see parks as smoke-free and tobacco-free places that are healthy and promote active, healthy lives. There are also benefits to the environment of banning these products from our parks and recreation. So I think I'd like to, if possible, hand it over to Mary Isaac so she can speak on Sustainable Trumbull's position.
Thank you. I'll try to speed talk too. Just for those of you, I was also on TPOD for a lot of years. I'm on the town council and also on the Sustainable Trumbull team. This is something that it was a coalition developed about 2017, grassroots effort. It's called Sustainable CT. And we are an offshoot of that. Trumbull started in about 2018. It was an ordinance through the council. I joined 2019, and that's pretty much when we started getting going on trying to get certified. There are 61 towns certified in Connecticut. And what this is it's a group that deals with things that you're doing well in your town, things you should be doing better at, and goals for the future. It deals with things from like recycling, composting, clean energy, watershed protection, open space, equity, arts, culture. So it's across a broad span of things. One of the areas that we had worked on last year when we got our bronze certification was on air quality. And that was partially on through TPOD's efforts. And so the trying to kind of curb the youth smoking and having smoking cessation groups, I would say that incorrectly. But anyway, so one of the efforts that we're looking at is reducing smoking in various areas. One would be the parks. Other towns have done that. So from two sides, from the side of trying to keep people from being exposed to secondhand smoke, on the other side of littering. And I have to say, from that aspect of it, seeing the number of pounds, we've collected over 500 pounds, even with the virus and with the snow, of various things, a lot of which are cigarette butts, are probably one of the most common things that are picked up on our town streets and in our parks. And there's we actually have an app that people put into, and one of the groups that had collected, and I have the number, they had what they say is one of the, of 12,000 pounds of trash and debris included with a steady presence of familiar items like cigarette butts, 9,796. And that was from like one of their collections. So you can imagine how many cigarette butts are in almost 10,000, how many pounds. I mean, it's unbelievable. So anyway, that's one of the areas we're looking at. There's also when we were doing, I was in Twin Brooks, in Beaches Park cleaning up, and I was shocked at the number of vaping products that were also out there. So along the roads, I had, a bag of butts and vape. So from both sides of it, littering, public health, and also, watching adults or other youth that are able to vape and smoke in these areas, we'd really love to kind of eliminate that, and good for the environment, good for the town. And that was my really quick, sorry, I tend to ramble. I'll go on mute.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Melissa? Mary, just for the record, your address, please.
Oh, sorry about that. 50 Skating Pond Road. And it's Mary Isaac.
Okay, any questions for our two guest commissioners? No? Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, Bill?
There's Mr. Kerr. And if anybody else would like to speak, just press the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen or *9 when you're on the phone.
Laura, with Velocity, did they get back to you? Were they going to speak tonight?
Yes, I believe that Mr. Reyes is in our attendees list. I think he's raised his hand.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah,
evening,
Mr.
all.
Reyes is on his way
Scot
in.
Kerr, 12 Lynbrook Road. I'm sorry, I hadn't registered to speak in advance, but I did want to just come on quickly and lend my voice of support to the pitch that Melissa and Mary just made. I actually sit on the executive board of TPOD and actually became more involved in TPOD as a result of my serving on your commission for a time when I joined as a representative of Parks and Rec. So I think that it's really important that we modernize our policies around the parks, particularly as it relates to vaping. As we've done a lot of work to exclude tobacco use from areas of our society, but vaping in its ways even more hazardous or more unknown and aggressively marketed. And I hope that you as a commission could lead by example by setting what shouldn't be used in our parks and open spaces. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Okay, we have
Mr. Reyes.
Mr. Reyes with, are you with Velocity? Is that who you're with?
Yes. Good evening, commissioners. This is Felix Reyes. I live at 5 Bailey Street, Trumbull, Connecticut. Just wanted to join this evening to introduce our program. It is a travel softball team. It is based in Trumbull with I would say 99% of the girls are from Trumbull, Connecticut. We are partnering up with some athletes in Shelton because they don't have a travel team. But mostly just wanted to introduce ourselves. We're a nonprofit and we just want to provide just a safe and happy environment for our growing softball popularity in the town of Trumbull and to complement, Trumbull Little League with their programs as well. It's myself. There's 2 other dads on the coaching staff. And we're looking at, and we submitted a schedule for games and practices to the Fields email address. And I think Laura, I think might have received something from Anthony, one of the managers, yes, on our schedule. We are putting the application together that we saw on the website. We submitted all our 501c documents. We're just waiting to get that confirmed. But there's a few items down there, from concussion protocol training to background checks. We have all that. We are working with USA Softball to get all those certifications, and should have that probably in the next 2 weeks. And I know the application has to go with all the dates, and I'm not 100% sure on how payments are, but I guess the request is that if the schedule can be reviewed and booked while we put the final application together, we should have that. I guess our first date for practice is going to be the beginning of April. And since this commission only meets once a month, we're kind of in the flux. We have all our dates. We're just waiting for all the documents for the application. So we were hoping that the commission would consider our practice dates and home games while we finalize those documents and application. Thank you.
Okay, just a question, Mr. Reyes, you said that you also had players from Shelton. What's the, what's the breakdown of percentage wise?
It's we have 13 girls and 1 girl from Shelton. So we have 12 girls from Trumbull and 1 girl from Shelton.
Okay.
Yep. So we're kind of in that kind of funky time frame of putting everything together for the application. We have about 95% of it ready, but we know we've got to get our schedule in and confirmed. So we were hoping that the commission will start looking at the dates and seeing if we have availabilities to get that booked as we kind of backfill the application, if that's okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
So are there tryouts for this team? Is it open to any girl from Trumbull?
So good question. The genesis of this program these were the girls that didn't make the travel team. And we felt that at 10 years old, I think it's too early to decide who the all-stars are and who are not. So we felt there was a lot of talent and just not enough roster spaces. So us as dads, I mean, this is what we do. We spend time with our kids and our girls. We felt we have a lot of experience. Why not take all those girls that weren't given a second look and start a new team? And that's what we did. And now we've given 13 girls a place in a safe environment to expand and develop and continue playing softball outside of Trumbull Little League. So that was the mission, and just give them a safe place. It's a co-op. So that means that all the parents are equally vested. The coaches are volunteers. So we keep the cost extremely low. And we work with our small businesses to rent spaces like D-Bats in Trumbull. We try to shop local for uniforms, and it's a nonprofit organization. So that's kind of like the genesis. So we don't have tryouts as of now. Maybe if we expand to more larger age groups, maybe next year we might need tryouts. But as of now, it was just a good group of girls that wanted to play and just didn't have a team to play on.
So these girls don't also play on Little League?
Some do. Some do. Of the 13 girls, 3 are playing Trumbull Little League, and the other 10 are not.
Okay, anyone else have a question for Mr. Reyes? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Lori Hayes O'Brien.
Thanks, Bill. Hi, good evening. I'm Lori Hayes O'Brien, 11 Blackhawk Road in Trumbull. Unfortunately, my son as a commissioner couldn't be with you tonight, but I wanted to jump in really quickly. I am also TPOG, Trumbull Prevention Partnerships chairperson. So I wanted to just back up with what Melissa and Mary and Scott have been talking about. Hopefully you'll consider this, as Melissa mentioned, nationally it's becoming the way to go. I also wanted to mention that, should there be concerns, questions, et cetera, about how to monitor this and signage, et cetera, that TPOD's, in a position to be able to help out in any way we can and are eager to do so. So just offering our help in hopefully making this move forward. And thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that's everybody.
Okay, thank you. All right, do I have a motion to close public comment?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, seconded by Mike. All in favor? Hand vote. Okay, we will move back to our regular meeting. Acceptance of minutes. Do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections to last month's monthly minutes? If none, do I have a motion to accept? A second? Okay, all in favor? Okay, so moved. Correspondence, there was none. Old business, does anybody have anything under old business? I have two items here. D, with the Asplund trucks, anything happening with that?
I believe the Asplund trucks will be leaving this week. I was in contact with their shop foreman last week. They had secured, I believe, Cavalry Church's parking lot. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I believe that's where they're going. Their crews were coming back from Maine with some of their equipment, and I think they'll be moving in there. So I suspect by week's end at the latest, they'll be gone.
That's the church on Shawnee in White Plains. Is that, did you say? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing I had, has Mr. Garrick's gotten back with you with any dates or any further info on the comedy nights?
Nothing further at this time, no.
No.
Was he waiting for a conditional agreement by the commission to move forward with events? I can't recall.
We did conditional approval depending on him contacting you and then getting back to us with more information on the specific day and times.
I'll reach out to him. I mean, right now, we're really just trying to formulate schedules all the way around. So now would be the time to start trying to get a little bit more information on that.
Okay, and one more thing I had here. Bill, did you guys have that meeting for the Vietnam Vets Park?
Hey, Kevin, no, because of weather, we postponed it a couple times now. So it's going to be Saturday morning, March 13th.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do a walkthrough at the site.
Okay. Thank you. Right, anything else under new business? I mean, old business, excuse me, old business. Okay, we'll move on to new business. We have two issues. We have the vaping and smoking ban in town parks, and then the softball, the velocity softball. But one other thing before we get to that, the field use committee has met since we last had a meeting. Brian, would you like to update us on what happened at that meeting?
I'm actually gonna, if it's okay, have Dimitri, I think he can probably summarize more effectively.
Okay.
Sure. So yeah, the field use committee got together. We really had one topic on the agenda, which was specifically to add one more tier, specifically for travel programs for scheduling purposes. It was voted in unanimously, and it's currently incorporated within the matrix for field scheduling. It's on the website, everywhere else, just in the nick of time.
So when I looked at that field use policy, the correction, so that the fees basically stay the same, it just gives them more priority for field use?
Well, a travel program will actually have less priority over the no-cut standard recreational program. So it would be the Board of Education, it would be uh, Parks and Rec programs, it would be a no-cut traditional recreation programs, and then it would be a travel program. But in some ways, it will actually split some of the activities of traditional groups because they have both. And that was really the primary push to try to get us another tier in there, because we only had one way of looking at an organization, which would be considered traditionally a rec like program that actually has now evolved into a travel program. So we were really running out of space, and that's kind of one of the biggest hurdles we're facing right now is where do we put everybody who's looking for space. So we've essentially just cleaned up the prioritization a little bit, and gives a little more clarity as to who gets what and when.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I actually meant when I said priority. I guess it's really priority over people who isn't a town travel program.
Yes. Travel isn't necessarily the problem. It's not a problem or the obstacle. It's just a different categorization. That's all. So that it gives us another way of deciding who comes first. That's pretty much it.
Right. Okay. Anything else on that topic? All right, so let's go to velocity softball. Anybody have any issues with that? Actually, that's kind of a field use committee. I don't believe we have to vote on that, Dee, right? As long as they have their info in and they meet all the criteria, then they just get slotted into a field use tier depending on availability.
That's right.
Okay. However, one of the questions that he had was that he wanted to book things prior to having everything in. I'm not so sure if that's allowed.
Okay. Well, I'll sort of jump ahead in my report. So right now we are right at the very beginning of putting together the overall field schedules. We just got the Board of Education schedule tail end of last week. Met with Mike King, went over all of his needs, and we've plugged that in. So we're starting with the top tier. We're working through our own rec programs as we speak. The reality is that we need to have everything that we can possibly have on the table so that we can do this the most equitably and fair method available to everyone. If one person jumps ahead, there's necessarily an assumption that they have what they've requested, and that's not necessarily the case until it's all done. So we're going to be doing a lot of work in the next few days, and hopefully have something incrementally starting to go up tier by tier. And by the time we're at the end of it, hopefully everybody has a spot and what they were looking for, or we're going to have to start looking for alternatives, or whether or not somebody wants to trade off. But it's near impossible to give anybody a thumbs up. It's a certainty that they have the space, because it just won't work until we have everything scheduled incrementally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's good. I wanted to get that on the record, because he was kind of asking us if we would, kind of pre-approve it, but we can't approve anything until the major schedules come out and see where they would slot anyway.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, we're much more progressive about all of this at this point. So you all potentially have a place. We're not, judging any organization one way or another. It's just what fits and what's available at a particular time of year. But we're certainly going to be working on it very hard.
Okay, have people been good about getting their rosters in and getting the information that's needed in?
We've had to remind them all, but for the most part, we've gotten almost everything. There's a couple that are still outstanding that we're gonna have to make a couple of phone calls tomorrow to remind them with a little more urgency that they provide us with a little information ASAP. But for the most part, we have everything on record right now, so we're doing pretty well.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Okay, next item under new business is the vaping smoking ban. Maybe you'd like to make a comment on that?
Kevin, do you know what the policy is now for smoking in the parks?
I have spoken with Dimitri about that, and I don't believe there's anything specific. Is that correct, Dee?
I'm not aware of anything that specifically prohibits smoking in the park. I would have to dig in a lot deeper to see if there's anything that designates specific areas, and even that I'm just not familiar with it.
Because there's no signage anywhere, right? I wonder if that's occurs in other municipalities, public spaces. I'm not familiar with that. It doesn't sound like a bad idea to me, but I don't know if that's a thing,
Teapot has certainly a lot of data on that. I don't know what particular communities have adopted it and in what manner, nor do I know where specifically the power rests with the prohibition. Is it an ordinance? Is it just a policy? I don't know the specifics around that. I've done a bunch of stuff with Steve Chapman recently, trying to get information, between the lines of a lot of our policies. This is not the one we were actually vetting out, but I'm sure that we could dig into it and see if we can find some room or a place for interpretation where we can or should place stricter regulations or complete prohibition on the use of vaping or any tobacco products, playgrounds or wherever the commission sees fit. But it has to land somewhere, so it has the weight of enforcement at some point.
It is a good idea, but it sounds to me there's a legal line you're walking here by doing something like this. I would think a way around it might be I'm sure there's something in the rules someplace about open fire or lit fire or something to do with lighting something up.
It's very possible. It's just how we want to.
That would be a way we could kind of get around it and put that in there to include it that way.
I would possibly,
but you don't light a vape, right?
Yeah, but
right.
Doesn't it ignite somehow or something?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But the thing that comes to mind from when I first heard this from Mary, there has got to be very specific language about this on Board of Education properties. There's got to be. I haven't searched it out, but I think that would be probably the best place to start to look for the specificity of the language and see if we can just simply carry it over. They've probably already done it. I think.
Demetria, this is Kathy. There is no smoking on any Board of Education property because we run into that issue with Trumbull Day, having to tell people to put the cigarettes out, put the cigars out. So there is no smoking at all on Board of Education property.
No, I was pretty certain that was the case, but where it lies, how specifically how the language is crafted. It may simply just be policy language, and it can be just adopted that way. But I would try to find that specific language and just replicate it.
My only concern would be how to enforce it. It's like the dog's off the leash. It's a hard thing to enforce. There's a lot of parkland that people can wander off into.
No, there's no question that I guess but the thing is like with anything else, you can't be everywhere, and you can't, control every behavior everywhere in a couple of thousand acres. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that philosophically, the commission or the town is endorsing a certain type of activity or lack or frowning upon a specific activity. It's language to start before you have to go chasing somebody down with a cigar in their mouth.
I know, just thinking more along a rights issue type of thing, or you have some guy that worked real hard all week and goes to the park and he's sitting by himself on a park bench and just wants to have a cigarette to enjoy himself. It seems like I feel bad saying you can't do that. He has a right to do that, and who are we to tell him he can't do that? No one's within 50 yards of him. So that, I don't know. I have trouble with that.
Yeah, but suppose he's at Unity Park and, at a Little League game. And
right, that's what I mean. We have to be like smoking a cigar or a pipe on a pool deck with everybody around is different than some guy sitting on a park bench all by himself that just wants to, enjoy a cigarette, that maybe he smokes one cigarette a week and that's his enjoyment, or a cigar. So who are we to say you can't do that? That's where I have a problem.
Well, then maybe a possible outlining of specific areas where the commission would like to start as a prohibitionary process. So you can't smoke at the playground, or just taking that as an example. That might be an effective first step.
When I'm working up at the high school and we have games, it's a hard thing to control. But normally we have police officers that are helping us to be able to confront this. And just having someone say, you can't smoke here, you got to put it out, you're going to run into some problems. When we do it at the high school, we at least have a group of people that, are going to help us enforce it. So I don't know how it's going to work in parks. I mean, just putting up the signs probably is all you're going to get. And then people are going to have to just hopefully behave themselves. But I don't know. I think it's a great idea. I think it should definitely be stopped, but hard to enforce.
Ken, I saw your hand up before.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with what Teapot is suggesting. And the issue of someone, with all due respect, having a cigarette because they've worked hard all week and they want to relax or whatever the case may be, they could do that in their car, or they could do it at home. I don't think they should be doing this in the park system in Trumbull. I mean, I know myself, walking the trails or running the trails, and I've encountered people that are smoking, and you pass by them, and it's not healthy. It's just not something that I would expect to see in the parks. And on top of that, the health issue, there's the safety issue. You throw a cigarette butt somewhere, I mean, that could actually light a fire in the park system. I think there should be some type of a general notification, whether it's on the signs entering the park, that no smoking is allowed, and at least bring the public, aware of the fact that we don't allow this, and there could be, some repercussion because of that. Now, you go to different communities throughout Fairfield County, and if you go to the beaches along Fairfield County, you can't smoke at the beach. Right. That's a huge swath of area. Someone's watching that. Somebody's maintaining that. Now, maybe there are lifeguards there. I don't know, but that's a tremendous amount of acreage, and they're able to maintain it. I go to Jennings, I don't see cigarette butts down there. People are adhering to what is healthy and safe. I don't know if this is a resolution that needs to go back to maybe town council or an ordinance of some sort. We have an ordinance of alcohol in the parks as well. I mean, why is that not, why is smoking any different? So it needs to, maybe TPOD needs to come back and give us some examples of how this works in other communities. It sounds like they've had discussion and interaction with other members of their group, and perhaps getting some guidelines from them would help us in coming up with a plan.
Anyone else? Bill, what happens legally with something like this, with rights or?
Well, that's what I'm saying. And if it's been implemented in other communities, perhaps we could draw on that or get an understanding of how it works or how it's managed, so we could follow the same format.
Yeah.
Can we go back to them? I'm sure TPOD has other areas that are doing this, and then we could just kind of get it from them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, I think there's a balancing between the, the needs of the public safety needs of the particular area. That's heightened certainly if it's a school or there's children around. And then you just take a look at whatever the specific area is. If you're talking about a public park, maybe it's not a school, but there's still certainly a public health, public safety need to control alcohol or tobacco use in that area. You just have to take a look at each of the properties in question and do the balancing of the, of the need on the one hand versus, you're banning a legal activity for those who are of age. So there has to be a strong reason to do it, but I think we're all in agreement that there probably is that reason for most of the properties that we're talking about, the properties that we as a commission have jurisdiction over.
Kevin, Melissa and Lori have their hands raised, so I don't know if they're looking to speak to this topic.
We could open up for their comments again. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, does someone want to make a motion to bring them back in?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay, go ahead, bring them back in.
Hi, I'm sorry, because I guess I dove in. I should have been clearer. You currently do have a policy in place. It's 15-9C, and it currently states no tobacco products or electronic nicotine delivery devices are allowed within 50 feet of any pool, sprinkler pad, playground, or permitted recreational area. The alcohol policy is parks wide. No alcohol in any park area without permit. So what we're asking to do is to expand the smoking and vaping ban to all park areas so it aligns with the alcohol policy. So I'm sorry that I wasn't clear on that, but you do currently have a policy in place. Other towns have, I know, I think Mr. Martin, you asked about other towns. Many towns in our area have done this. Some of them have done it through local ordinance. Many of them have done it through Parks and Recreation policy, which is what you have currently in place. I know I live in Westport. They don't currently have a no smoking vaping at Campo Beach, but they are looking to put a policy in place this season to ban smoking and vaping, but many of the area towns along the way do. In terms of enforcement, some of this is social pressure. Right now, if you have someone vaping right next to you or near you, or you see someone disposing of anything, you can't even point to a policy that forbids it. So by putting a policy in place and putting some signage, and as Mrs. Hayes O'Brien mentioned, we can help support that with our grant funding through TPOD. But at least you give people the ability to say, hey, that's not allowed here. And right now that doesn't exist except for the very specific, pool areas and playgrounds specifically. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
And Melissa, just a question, have you noticed that there's areas of high usage, like high smoking areas in the Trumbull parks that we might be able to focus the enforcement efforts if we do adopt a park-wide policy?
I wanted to go out and do an environmental scan, but snow and winter is not always the best time to see what's out there. It's not when our parks are getting their high usage. I would, we've noticed from talking to people, like Mary mentioned earlier, access roads, walkways, pathways. I would say the area you talk about Unity Park, once you go 50 feet, there's still a lot of parking area. There's still a lot of area where kids are hanging out, kids are warming up, kids are getting in and out of cars. I'd like to see it banned in parking areas of these facilities. I worry about the toxicity. I mean, I'm sure you've all noticed those little tiny jewel pods and little tiny pods that people dispose and disposable vapes themselves. Those have batteries in them. They have electronic components. They're terrible for our environment. As I mentioned earlier, the liquid that's left in those devices is toxic to humans and to animals. So the idea that I think it's an environmental disaster coming upon us with all these devices that are going to end up in our landfill, but I'd like them not to end up on the sides of our paths and in our parks or underneath our benches or all the areas where we tend to see them accumulate. And we're happy to help in any way we can. Thank you. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any comments on this topic? So where do we proceed from here? Dee, do you want to check and see what the best thing for us to try to act on, whether it be an ordinance or policy or?
Kathy, you still on?
I am.
Yeah, she is.
Kathy, do you think we should have the commission bring this before Danny just for perspective on it to either expand on the language in the ordinances or just craft a policy language within the commission itself?
I can certainly bring it to the town attorney meeting on Wednesday and see what he suggests.
That'd probably be most helpful, and then just a little bit of guidance which way we go with that, and then
Sure.
determine which way we want to go from there.
Sure. Melissa, would you be able to send me what you just read about the
Actually, Kathy, I have a draft proposal we wrote, and I actually sent it to Dan Shopik the other day, but I don't think he has had a chance to review it. So I'm happy to send that on to you. It's got, just a slight change of the language of the proposal. It's got the information Mary and I presented tonight, and it might, save you some steps.
Okay, and I'll put it on for Wednesday's agenda with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I guess we'll kind of table this till next month until we get a little bit more information. If we get some language that we can vote on or approve, it may be easier. Does that sound agreeable to commissioners?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Melissa. Thank you. All right, moving on to superintendent's report. Yeah, there's nothing in writing, so make it good orally.
That really just sounds so wrong. I'll do my best. So obviously we're starting to see a melt, and we're also starting to see a tremendous uptick in park activity already. We've had the most recent sector rule changes from our governor, certainly signaling that there is going to be something more akin to what we're familiar with as normalcy, at least within traditional parks activities, and pretty much every user group that we do business with is also well aware of it, and they're coming right to my front door looking for time, space, and trying to get as much of it locked up as humanly possible. So as I was indicating, we're actively putting together our schedules right now because I suspect it's going to be a booming spring in the park system, and good for that. I also believe that there will be some new language coming out possibly in the next week or so, outlining, yeah, I'll get it eventually, the changes around camp sector rules. So that is certainly going to change from where we were last year. Again, opening up opportunities again for our residents who are searching for camp opportunities. We should be able to provide that again. We're already well into doing some of our traditional purchasing and trying to schedule some things up, even though we're not entirely sure what it's going to look like, whether or not it would even have trips involved. It certainly will be something far better than what we had last year. Pools are, as of right now, it's still going to be a scheduled event, but that may change by the time we actually go into full operation. Remains to be seen, but we managed to crack the code on even the restricted manner of last year. It seemed to work fairly well. So it's either going to be as bad or / good as it was last year, or much, much better, as long as the pools work. Speaking of pools, we started our swim lessons and our first open swims this past week back at Hillcrest. So we're going in a positive direction there as well. We are back at taking down dead ash trees in Twin Brooks and filling in all of our truck prints and damage that's throughout the park system. We're still down some of our personnel, somewhat of a repressed roster, but we're doing the best we can with it. We're spending a little bit of time chugging away at the Abraham Nichols barn. It seems that we have been successful at getting funding in our CapEx plan for a whole variety of projects. Certainly seems like we are teeing up for the renovations of Unity tennis / pickleball courts, very possibly a set of banks at Tashua this coming year. Have some preliminary work. The design work is pretty much all complete for the Tashua pump filter house renovations. So that some piece of that will actually begin this year, most likely at the end of the season. What other good stuff do we have going on? That's a lot. What else do you want to know from me? I've been busy.
Question? What's the status of the program director?
Something else I've been involved in. So we've gone through the first half of the excuse me, phone call. Original batch that HR had supplied us. We did round 1. We know that there was a second round. Civil Service had agreed to providing us with 4 more applicants from this second round. We have not yet been provided those names. As soon as they are, we're going to have to go through them. We'll put together, the best list from the 10, and we'll get down to final interviews. Unfortunately, I mean, realistically, where we are on the calendar, and what it takes to actually bring on a hire. So even at this point, we're not likely to see, anyone installed at the very earliest, maybe mid to late April, if not longer, depending on how the negotiations go with whomever we ultimately give the offer out to. So it is certainly going to be challenging to run as much of the things that most likely are going to have to run this year. Plus, whoever's going to be coming in the door is going to be on fire with needing to try to play catch up, because everything's going to be running the minute this person comes on board. But whenever it is, it's not soon enough. Does the commission have any other questions?
Just one question I have is your lack of manpower. Is there anything like, getting summer help early or something along that sort to try to get you guys some help?
So much to HR's chagrin and their perpetual hatred of me, I haven't termed practically any of my summer help from a year and a half ago. So there are some names that are still floating out there, and a few of them have actually reached out to me, seeing if there was going to be an opportunity for them to come back. And so the second I'm actually able to get a lawnmower out, or need to get a lawnmower out, I certainly will be able to get a couple of people instantly, and that will be a tremendous help. It doesn't look like we're going to get 3 to 4 of our full-time back anytime soon, for a variety of reasons, just all medical reasons. So that is definitely going to impact our ability to do a lot of stuff, but we'll get the basics done and hopefully make some headway on some of these major capital projects as well.
Okay, anyone else have a question for our superintendent? No? Does anyone else have any other items that they want to bring up before we adjourn?
I do have one question, yes.
Right, Ken.
So I was reading the minutes of the last town council meeting, and it appears that the town is applying for a grant for water analysis at Dogwood Lake, and which is in Nichols. And my understanding, because I used to live in that neighborhood, was that that lake was a private lake. And then I found out that evidently the town foreclosed on that property a few years back because of the non-payment of taxes. So now it's deemed a municipal lake. And I'm wondering if that's the case, why Dogwood Lake should not be on list of our public parks or public spaces.
Well, I can't specifically answer that question why it hasn't been transferred over, but I'm sure you're aware, there are quite a number of town-owned spaces that haven't been officially put on the list of parks. I don't know why that is, but there are quite a few. I mean, we've talked for many years, like the Booth Hill Greenbelt as a large parcel. I think even Mary Bill's is technically not parkland. It's been discussed on a number of times, but I think it has to be voted on by town council that any one of these parcels, for whatever reason, would have to be then designated as parkland.
I agree, but if town council is passing a resolution to fund money for analysis of the lake, well then, aren't they basically accepting the property as town owned? And if that's the case, and they're protecting that water body, it just seems to me that that's different than, let's say, an idle parcel of land that the town owns. Yes, the town owns many parcels of land. They could be small strips. They could be unbuildable pieces of property. They could be pieces that may have been donated, for tax reasons back to the town. But this is a huge body of water. It does have recreational aspects to it. I mean, obviously, I'm reading the Rangers report about the issues with ice skating in the town. It doesn't seem to be any space for that. And with Unity's not an option, based on our last meeting. I think Dogwood Lake would, I know it freezes. We've skated there in the past. perhaps this is something that we need to investigate further as a nice opportunity for the residents to use it, since it's not private anymore, from what I understand. There is access to it through Cedar Rock Road. There's a right of way there. I know kids go back there and they fish. So I think we should really get more information on, what it is and how we could possibly use it or add it to our inventory of parks.
Does that sound feasible, what Ken requested?
I would suspect that the commission could make a reach out to the administration and the town council and make that very request, as you probably could for the rest of them. I'm not making equivalencies to dismiss what Ken said. There's a lot of parcels out there that over the years have been discussed as being very fitting under the care, custody, and control of the Parks Commission. You could take a review of those parcels and see whether or not they belong under your care, and make that as an official request. It was very, as I said, it was very close. I think that Mary Bill's was intended to be signed over. It was just the timing of it all, and then it just was forgotten about. That's, I don't know, what is that, 68 acres? I think Booth Hill Greenbelt was another one. That's equally ginormous. And there are others. So maybe that is something the commission wants to pursue, whether it be the Dogwood Pond or any other, and look at it and try to tidy up some of that. I think it's just sort of been forgotten about, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I would use, let's say, Gunther Pond over in Long Hill as an example. When Fred Gunther, approached the previous administration, the town took that property over, and now it is considered a public park. You know yourself that your crew is out there all the time, maintaining it and putting funding and repairs into that body. And it's listed, as a fishing spot, as a public park.
Right.
Much greater in size, and I think that it probably has more usability, if you will, for more residents. And I would ask that this be investigated further. And again, if it is municipal, I think it is, then it should be used, because it is it's a natural resource. It has great access, and I think that it would be a welcome addition to our park system.
Is there access to that, or I thought all houses back onto that?
There are houses that back up to it, but there is a right of way that comes in off of Cedar Rock Road, and the map shows the right of way, which is what actually the town foreclosed on, the right of way and also the pond itself. There was a beach area there years ago, and it was considered to be private with charter members. And then it also extended out beyond into like Golden Hill Street and some other neighborhood locations just in that area. But I was just surprised to find out that it is now municipally owned, and I think other people should be aware of that.
So there was a beach there, and you went swimming at the beach?
I didn't go swimming at that beach, no. I did swim, I did fish there with my kids, and I also used a sailcraft over there. So it's very nice. You should Google it, take a look.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Ken, for bringing that to our attention. Nancy, did you have something?
Well, no, that sounds interesting. I agree with Ken about the ice skating. It does sound like, according to the Rangers report, they've been shooing kids off of, or people off of different ponds in Trumbull. It'd be nice if there was actually a safe alternative. And the write-up, when I Googled it, said it was a shallow one. So
just for clarity on skating, when the Unity project is complete, one of the two major water basins will absolutely be designed so that it actually is a water collection area, but also will be managed for ice skating. So Lee DeFusco will not curse me to my grave.
When do we expect?
I will do it.
Like for next winter?
You know, I don't believe that is, I don't actually think it got fully funded for this year. So you're probably like a year out for that to actually happen.
Well, Dogwood Lake is ready to skate on, so maybe we can work on that.
So says Ken. Hans Brinker of Trumbull.
All right, very interesting. So the only problem if skating was feasible over there, what people would park on Teeter Rock?
I guess. I mean, there isn't a parking lot there, but you know, but there is access to it. So it's not through somebody else's property. There's a right of way to gain access to the water.
Okay, anything else? All right, does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Mike, and seconded by Ken. All in favor? All right, good meeting. We'll see you next month.